Good evening. This is Dale Lamb, Gardner Webb University. It's Wednesday, December the 14th, 2006. This is our last weekly Zoom session of the fall semester. This is 14 of 14. I'll dive right in tonight. The first thing I want to cover with you is I had some questions this week from students. Good questions. Jason and a couple more asked me these questions. And so on our course overview page, I have listed the litany of things that you will need to check off your list for graduation for those of you in the additional master's program, and for completion for those of you who are in the add-on licensure. Now, you say, but Dale, if you're in 604, you're probably not add-on licensure. Well, I don't know. That's not always the case, as I have found out. Some students have a couple who are auditing, and some other folks who take 604 or who see these videos. So for all of you, so let me just dive right in. 605 requirements next semester. Oh, by the way, next semester starts the week of the 16th of January. Seems a little early, but that's when it starts. So be prepared for that. That may be a week earlier than normal, but I think that gets you through a week earlier than normal too. So be prepared to get started that week of the 16th. And since your classes are online, I don't know when your professor will determine to do that class, but it starts the 16th. So things for you to do to graduate. First, you got to pass 605. Don't forget that one. You complete all university dispositions. And so let's look at that one right quick. In task stream, hopefully you're still on the screen with me. There are 6 dispositions for you to do over the course of the time that you're in this program. You can go ahead and do all of them now. So from your work page, in task stream, please be sure to complete regular dispositions, semesters 1, 3, and 5, and then SOE dispositions 1, 3, and 5. Again, that's your opinion. Now, remembering that your clinical coach cannot go in and do the other half of those until you do yours first. And so I see some folks, I sent some emails earlier today, some of my folks that need to go ahead and finish those up. All right, so back to course overview. So complete all of your university dispositions. Again, there's 6 of them. Commit the only 2 components that are due next semester are 5E and 6F. You should be to the point where you can complete those over the break, hopefully. You submit all 6 final evidence artifacts for grading. Remember, once you have all your components together for individual evidence artifact, then you submit all of them in one package as one final document along with the summary and descriptors. Now, if you don't know how to write summaries and descriptors, go to intern materials or task stream tools, and I have some documents there to help you with writing. I think they may be in both places. They're in one or the other of those 2 places, task stream tools or intern materials on how to write summaries and descriptors. I think they're in task stream tools. But they're there to help you write those summaries and descriptors. Now, those are a separate area in task stream. When you get to that final one, there'll be a button that says complete form. Be sure to click on that complete form and put in your summary and descriptors with your final evidences for your final grading. Then your evaluator will grade all your evidence artifacts proficient. Your evaluator will then complete your licensure evaluation. Back to task stream. Now, again, you don't have anything to do for licensure evaluation other than submit. Once you get all 6 of your final ones submitted and graded, then it'll be at that time your evaluator will do the licensure evaluation. Comes at that time. Remember, what you have to do for that is have all 6 of your evidence artifacts in there for final grading, the final versions of those. All right. Your principal completes site supervisor's disposition semesters 1, 3, and 5. If they have not done that, make sure that you get to them and have them complete the 3 of those. They will need a username and sign in for, or username and password for login information for task stream. If they do not have that, you need to get in touch with your clinical coach, and your clinical coach will help you get to Dr. Shellman, and who will get them a username and password to do your 3 site supervisor dispositions. They can do those at any time. They are not triggered by you doing yours. They can go in at any time and do theirs. Your principal completes certification of competency, and that's based on the 400 hours that you did for them. So going back to task stream, competency is for your principal and for your clinical coach. Your principal bases that on your internship log. Again, you put your log in at that time as well and get it graded by your clinical coach. You should have 400 hours. That's what you show your principal, and they will sign off on your competency. Your clinical coach will go and look at the 21 competency proofs that you have in your folio, and then at that time they will do certification of competency. They will not do that until you get all 21 of your competency proofs in that competency folio. You know how to go to task stream and look that up. So your principal completes certification of competency. Your content coach, or your clinical coach, I should say, clinical coach, completes your university dispositions. And that's after you've done yours. And then your clinical coach completes certification of competency once you've submitted your 21 proofs in your competency folio. Let me see if I can edit that now. A little housekeeping here. Let's see if it'll let me do it tonight. Task stream's working awfully slow, and so is Blackboard tonight. Let's see if it's going to let me do that. There you go. So your clinical coach completes university dispositions, but remember, you have to do all of yours before they can do theirs. Then your clinical coach will complete your certification of competency once you've submitted your 21 competency proofs in your competency folio. And then you will get an email from Seth Oakley, who works in our office, and he will send you information once you've completed all your requirements. That's his email. And you'll go online at DPI and complete Form V and pay your $55 fee for your license, and you'll be done. So those are the things that you have to do. If you have questions, contact me about these, but these are the things that have to be done during next semester for you to complete your program and all of your folios and portfolio. So that's what you have to do. I had that question come up this week. All right, so tonight, the weekly schedule is just wrap up. That's all the weekly schedule says. It's just a wrap up tonight, and so let's do that. All right, so back to interviewing. Last week I covered my top 10 for interviews. First thing to cover tonight is things you should bring to an interview. Let's go to new share. 5 things you must bring to a job interview. A current resume, it shouldn't be more than 2 pages long with references. References and their contact information should be current. A cover letter that is specific to that particular job, and that cover letter says, I'm interested in this job for these reasons. Your references should be on the second page of your resume. Make sure your resume is chronological. Don't leave gaps. A strategic plan, I usually tell students you don't actually have to write this one out except for yourself to have some notes. That's after you've looked at their TWC and their report card, any other demographic things that you can look at that have numbers about the school. And you can, if they ask you about a strategic plan, you can share that with them. Your portfolio, obviously you can't bring your entire task stream portfolio. I suggest a 2-page summary of the 6 evidence artifacts that you did. Would be a good thing to put in their hand to show them that you know what the job of principal or assistant principal is, and that you know how to build a school improvement plan. And so let's look at that quickly. What that should look like, it should be a 2-pager. Let me close that one. New share. 2-page evidence summary. And you can see about this long, and you hit the high points of what you did in each of your evidence artifacts. The sixth one, you can just say these 5 were combined to create a school improvement plan that address those, but tell them what the main things that you did. Again, this is under Zoom session 14 if you want to read all this, but you need a 2-page evidence summary. A lot of principals are interested in this because they didn't go through this process and they don't really know what your evidence artifacts are about. And this is a quick and easy way to show them what you did in your demonstration portfolio. All right, so I covered my top 10 last week. I won't go back over those again. Let's start talking about the first interview. All right, the first interview, I had a student in Charlotte this week who went and she told me she was going to be interviewed by her principal, and I thought, well, that's odd. That's usually the 3rd round interview. And so when she got there, it was a 1st round interview. They gave her a set of questions to answer. Now, sometimes it will be like this is an activity where you got 21 emails and you got to sort through them. There's usually a catch. The catch with this particular one is you have to categorize all 21 of the emails as either urgent, important, or not urgent, but important. Urgent and not important, and not urgent, not important. The trick on this one is there's no such things as things that are urgent but not important. So if you have any in that quadrant, you'll fail the test. Then they ask you what you would do with each of those, what actions you would take, and the reasons why. Sometimes they give you a set of data and ask you to interpret that, what programs you'd put in place. It's usually some sort of reasoning or data analysis that the written test that they gave you. Particular lady that I was talking about, she showed up expecting a principal interview, and they gave her a set of data, and then they asked her questions about it. So it was a traditional 1st round interview as I thought it would be. So hopefully she was prepared for that. So they'll give you something like this, or they do something maybe from Strength Finder, Perceiver, Gallup, and we'll go over that in just a minute. Let's look at usually there's a little trick on these. Item number 2 is a perfect example. Dr. Brown, the newspaper would like to do a feature on you as a new principal, and I need to set up a time for interviewing you, some of your teachers. Please respond as soon as you receive this email and let me know a good time to come. All right, the trick on this one is it's not urgent. It is important, but the action that you would take on this one is to pass this one along to your public information office. School personnel, school administrators do not speak to the media. You go through your public information office. If they want to set up an interview, that'd be up to them, but you do not do that. And so that's kind of the trick on that one. So it's kind of a trick question. It is not urgent, no matter what the newspaper says. Urgent would mean you'd need to do something. It is important, so you would forward the email request off to public information, and you would let them guide you from there. So they give you scenarios like this to work for that bring them to bear all the things that you've learned in this program. This is what I call the cattle call interview, when they have maybe dozens or even hundreds of applicants for jobs, and they don't have the money to put all of them through the process, the background checks and all those things. And so they kind of weed you out with something like this. If they don't use this, they may do an interview with you based on the Gallup themes. You will cover those things next semester in 605, the book called Strength Finder, where you find your own strengths, but they're looking for particular strengths. And so the 12 themes that they're trying to determine are commitment, ego drive, achiever, developer, individualized perception, relator, stimulator, team, arranger, command, discipline, and concept. And so they're going to ask you a series of questions. If they do the traditional Gallup interview, they'll ask you 60 questions. Now, that doesn't mean that you get to all 60 of them. They'll ask you in 5 sets of 12. If you hit the landmine question in any of those sections, you stop right there. The only way that you could possibly get through is if you hitting a landmine is if you hit it on the last section, because if you don't score at least 40, you don't get out of 60, you don't get through. Let me give you an example of some of the questions that you'd be asked in this general interview. Do you have a life commitment to education? Your answer would be, of course, yes. Do you have more energy than other people? Yes. How would you support your teachers emotionally? Um, are you concerned about the personal problems of your teachers? Yes. Um, do you like to run meetings? Yes. Do you say that you're a highly disciplined person? Yes. Um, the landmine question on this one um, is, would you say you're a highly disciplined person? If you say no, we're not interested in you. The leader of the organization has to be the most disciplined person in the organization. So that's the landmine question on that one. Second round of questions. Um, um, uh, do you want your teachers to know they can call you anytime, day or night? And the answer to that one, and a lot of people say, Lord, no, business is business, not for a school administrator. If you answer that one, no, I don't want them to call me anytime, then we're not interested in you. I mean, you have to have ownership. We're giving you the keys to the building. We expect you to be totally bought in. So the answer is yes. Your teachers can call you anytime, day or night. The next set, um, the landmine question on this one, are there certain beliefs in which you have no intentions of ever changing your mind? And the answer is yes. You have to be totally committed. You have to be a believer. You have to believe that all children can learn, and you can't ever be shaken from that premise. Landmine question on this one, the next section is, if the pay were the same, would you prefer being a principal or a teacher? Again, if the pay were the same, would you prefer being a principal or a teacher? Basically asking, do you prefer working with kids or adults? And you better say prefers being a principal who are working with teachers. If you say I like working with kids, they'll let you stay working with kids. That's the landmine question there. Um, are you an on-time person? And the answer is yes. No quibbling. No, you're always on time or early. School runs on time. If you say, well, I'm late every now and then, or I try not to, then we're not interested. So those are the kinds of questions they're trying to look at themes for you, and so those are the kinds of questions that you would be asked in a first round interview. So again, interviews come in rounds. There's usually 4 rounds. First round is a general cattle call interview. They give you scenarios, they give you data, and they're looking for your reasoning and your analytical skills, or they're asking you questions to try to determine um, your leadership profile. What themes you have. That's the first round, and that separates. That thins the herd down to a more manageable size. The second round of interviews is generally the group interview. Now the trick with this one is these generally are stocked with non-school administrators. You may have an assistant principal or a principal there who's to manage the group. A lot of times you won't even you'll have a lead teacher, or you'll have somebody else from HR, human resources, there leading the group. You won't have an actual school administrator there. Usually these groups are composed of teachers and parents. Sometimes if it's secondary school, it's students. And basically what they'll ask you questions, and they're looking for your ability to speak to lay people, to stakeholders, in terms that they can understand. So basically what they'll ask you to do is translate for these people. So when they ask you about your leadership style, you won't say transformational or situational. What you'll give them the the tenets or the components of those types. Open to change and new ideas, positive, courteous, and respectful, avoiding personal conflict, focused on the issues, earning trust, child-centered. This would be, this would be transformational. They'll ask you questions, how assessment drives, instructions. The look forwards, they'll be looking at data analysis, development of teaching strategies based on needs of students, which we would just simply say differentiate instruction. Willingness to plan collaborative, that's PLCs, but they won't know what PLCs or differentiate instruction is. So basically during the group interviews, and again, you can go to week 14 on Zoom and pull this entire PowerPoint up, but the whole idea here is for you to be able to speak in terms that lay people can understand, because the group interview is going to be comprised of lay people who are not school administrators. And can you interpret for them that jargon that you've learned? We've drilled that jargon into you over the course of this program. Now all of a sudden you have to be able to interpret that jargon for people who don't know what it means and all the acronyms. All right, so that's what the group interview is for. The third level interview, move my desktop, share screen. Is the principal interview, where the principal interviews you directly. And here is a series of questions. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you all 156 of these or ever how many I have. You can see many of these are repeated, 154. Many of these are repeated, but they're all going to, these are kind of like in sets of 12 or so, and you can kind of see that. Tell us about your educational background, your work experience, why you want to become an assistant principal, your professional goals. Do you think social faculty functions are important? You got a new idea. So now this is the time when you get to show off what you've learned during this program and use the jargon, the acronyms and all that, because you're speaking to another school administrator. And part of the reason why they want to talk to you about this stuff is they want to make sure that you do know all this, that you speak as an administrator would, that you know the terminology, the jargon, you know the acronyms. And so here's a set of questions for that. All right, and there's a couple of scenario questions in there too, and I think one about a girl having a box cutter. There's some of those in there. So look through these. Many of these are much the same, but look through these questions. Again, this is the third level. Then the fourth level, the fourth round of interviews is generally with the superintendent. A lot of superintendents are now interviewing assistant principal candidates so that they can know who they can promote if they need to quickly, or have an idea who they want. They don't want somebody as an AP that they can't ever see being a principal. And so a lot of assistant superintendents or area superintendents or superintendents are now on that final interview. And the thing to remember about those final interviews is they're big pictures. They are not about specific things. They are more specific to big ideas like 21st century skills. North Carolina's vision of 21st century skills called Future Ready, which is what students should look like if you taught them using 21st century skills. But you know what 21st century skills are: communication, technology, all those kinds of things. You've seen the rainbow. And I've got the short form for those and the long form. And then again, the Future Ready document is here that explains what students should look like once they've had 21st century skills. You really need to look at that one. And then down here at the bottom, I found this one, and I really like this one. This is my favorite of all. I'm big on how to. All you had to do to build the pyramids was move a few rocks, but the devil was in the details. And remember, as an administrator, that's what you're about, is the details. And so this last one is the 6 steps to implementing the 21st century skills. This is, you can't just say, well, I'd implement 21st century skills, because the superintendent might say to you, well, how are you going to do that? And then you would say, well, I'm glad you asked. Here are the 6 steps that I would use. And so if nothing else, you memorize these steps. Um, uh, this is how you would go about implementing those 21st century skills. And of course, it goes over the rainbow again, and there they are. But it has a step-by-step of a blueprint or a plan. First is increasing awareness, and it tells you how to do that. Second is assessing your current state, and it tells you exactly what you would do to implement the 21st century skills. So this is a really good one, on how to go in and implement those. So again, this spring, once you complete your portfolio and get applied for your license, it gets on over in the year when the interviewing season starts for the fall, sometime April, May, June. You should be ready to go. Fill out your applications again. Going back to the things I talked about last week, don't apply for jobs you wouldn't take. School's not going to get any closer to your house just because you want the job. People will find out. Remember, the administrator that's interviewing you, the people that are putting you through this process, their job is not to get you experience in interviewing. Their job is to find the best person. So make sure that when a job comes open, if that's a job you want, but you apply for it, that you understand that there's going to be 4 levels of interviews you're going to have to go through. The first one being some kind of a cattle call interview where they're going to give you a sheet of paper with questions on it for you to go and answer, like the in-basket activity, or they're going to ask you questions about your leadership skills or style. And try to look at your themes and see if you can score 40 or more out of 60 on those, because there is a right answer for each of those questions. Or they're going to give you a set of data and then ask you questions about that data. That's going to be the first round. The second round is going to be the group interview, where you're going to have to get in front of a group of lay people and interpret educational jargon into something that they can understand. The third round is going to be with the principal, where you use that jargon and acronyms to show them that you can speak and act as an administrator. That you know what a dibble is if you're interviewing for an elementary job. That in-class data is commonly called dibbles. You would use that terminology. And then the fourth round is going to be with the superintendent or the area superintendent or the assistant superintendent. And that's going to be big picture things and most likely it's going to be 21st century skills and future ready, which is North Carolina's vision of what those 21st century skills should look like in terms of student attributes. And then that last one, how to implement 21st century skills. So that's the process that you're going to go through to try to get a job. As I've told you, all of the materials that you need for these are here under week 14. The 5 things to bring to a job interview. My top 10 for interviewing that I covered last week. The 2-page evidence summary, that's of your portfolio. That's one of the 5 things to bring. And then I have examples of what 4 rounds of interviews will be. So if you will make sure that you go through these before you go out and start the interviewing season, spend a little time, especially learning those 6 steps to implementing 21st century skills, and looking at that group interview, those slides on that PowerPoint on how to interpret those questions where lay people can understand them, where you don't talk over their head, you will be more successful in your interviewing. I do want to look at these again quickly. I covered them last week in depth, but I want to remind you again, my top 10 for job interviewing. I've got a little time left here. Get that out of the way so I can open this document. Again, these are pet peeves from somebody who's interviewed a lot of people and hired a lot of positions. And so let's run with these. All right, dress for success. Take a 2-page evidence summary. As I told you, research the school and administration, look at your report cards. TWC, know the background of the administrative team. That's in case you're asked about a strategic plan. or what you would do going forward, knowing what you know about the school, know what you don't know, be able to speak all these acronyms. If you're in the principal interview, EBOS, Power School, Power Source, and those, be able to interpret those if you're in the group interview so that the lay people know what they mean. Have a humorous anecdote about how you were able to turn a negative into a positive. Um, be prepared to discuss hours and responsibilities honestly. If you got small children and you need to be with them at night, you need to, that needs to be part of, if you live an hour away, or if you've got to come early or leave late, those kinds of things, you better talk about those up front. Don't discuss salary, experience, steps, national board, etc. The principal has nothing to do with that. That would be with the HR people. Schedule you a session with them to talk about those. While you're in the interviewing process, that would be appropriate. They will answer those questions for you, but not the principal. That's not the proper person. Don't engage in gossip or negative talk. Word gets around. Don't interview for a job you wouldn't take just for the experience. This is a waste of the interviewer's time, and word will spread. Our job is not to get you experience. That's not what we're there for. All right, and I also have, once you get your job going into this fall, come back to this document, and I have top 10 for the first faculty meeting, which hopefully that first faculty meeting I consider to be the most important. It will make or break you, and many times make or break your career. I've got the top 10 things that you need to do for that faculty meeting or not do to get you off to a good solid start with the people that you work with. All right. Okay. Let's see. I think I have covered everything that I want to cover. Let me go back to task stream tools. Let's look at some of these things that I have that you might want to download and keep. I've got examples of what the final, I've got the narrative templates for when you put them together for the final narrative. I've got some templates here if you want to use those. I've got examples of completed final submissions, elementary, middle, and high school. I do have the document here on how to write task stream summaries and descriptors and what they should look like. I have all that under task stream tools. Under intern materials, I have examples of what we consider to be open-ended competencies, and I have competencies that you would have done as a result of doing your evidence artifacts. These two documents here obviously will go, these are examples of proofs that would go in your competency folio. Remember, you only have to put in one proof for all 21 of those. You only have to do the first 21. So if we go back to task stream folios and web pages and we go to competencies, you've got to have one example or one proof, starting with communication and going through visionary. You don't have to do professional dispositions or digital learning competencies. This is where you would upload a communication example. And this one, it can come from Evidence Artifact 1, the app cell, the SIOP number 6, or it can be open-ended. If you don't know where to find them, again, those two documents under intern materials would give you examples of where you could find those proof of competencies that you will need to put in here. And this is what your clinical coach will base their certification of competency decision on, is the quality of these 21 proofs right here. Okay, and that again is under folios and web pages. Now, if you have not set up that folio again, from your main screen, as soon as you sign into TaskStream, you go to Messages. There'll be Revised Competency Template will be there for you. Go to the bottom of the next page, click on it. I'll have to move this. Copy. Yes, I want a copy. and then it will be there. And you go, and there will be your red folio. Don't even bother to you've got one for dispositions. You don't have to do that. Continuing students don't. Just make sure you get your competency folio in there and put a proof of those in there for each one of those. If you have questions, whether you're my student or not, you're always going to be my student. Make sure you go back and do that. Make sure you get those folio competencies in there so you can get your certification of competency done next semester. All right. If you have questions, if you have issues, you have my email, you have my phone number. The semester never ends for me. We just keep right on going. To that end, my suggestion is do not go into 605 with any significant amount of competency of evidence artifact work left. You should get there. You should pretty much have your folio and all the components done of all 6 of your evidence artifacts. You'll just need to put them together and submit them and get your competencies in your folio, and you should be good to go. Make sure you do your dispositions. If you've not done those under university dispositions, make sure you do those as soon as you can. All right. I've enjoyed it this semester. Y'all have been a great group. Everybody, I think, made an A this semester, met the minimum amount of points, and I was pleased with that. We didn't have anybody that got behind or stayed behind. Everybody kept up. Hopefully you kept up in task stream. You did in Blackboard, so we're all good for the semester. Again, I am available anytime. Just call or email. And I hope all of you have a holiday. I've got one more Santa Claus event to do, and this beard will. If you look back to September, I didn't have this beard. So I've got 2 Santa Claus events down and 1 to go, and then I'll be through with this. So I should be looking different the next time you see me. I'll kind of look like I did in September if you want to look back at some of those old videos. But if I don't hear from you, have a happy holiday, and I'll be around. Just if you need me, let me know. And I'll be available next semester. Again, the semester starts the week of January 16th. So everybody have a good holiday and stay safe. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.